Hello, it's Mark here from Fluent Finance Abroad, and today we're going to cover the topic of how to buy a property off plan here in Spain. And I'm with Daniel Wardle from a company called Developments. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Mark.
We've been working with Developments for a number of years, and they're specialists in off plan purchases. Is that right?
That is correct.
Can you tell us a little bit more?
Off-plan and new build. So if you ever went onto our website, is basically covering all new build off-plan along the whole coast.
Costa del Sol.
So we have the Costa del Sol, we have Costa Blanca, and we've just opened up an office in Dubai as well.
What's so attractive for a property investor to consider a new build or an off plan?
For an investor or a first-time buyer,
Yeah.
they will obviously look at off-plan and new build, especially the off-plan stuff that hasn't started to be built just yet, because they will get a better price than something that is key ready.
Okay. Why would that be?
Well, there's a few reasons, to be honest, Mark. One, developers and builders, they need to sell those units quicker than the resale market, so they will have lower prices. Second of all, obviously, they're not built, so that's why they can give you the better price, knowing the fact that in a couple of years' time, once it is built, ready, and you've got the keys, and you wanted to resell it, the price would have shot up to whatever the price is in that area.
Yep.
Third of all, obviously developers want to give you better prices because they know that they will make more money by giving you the better prices, because they're going to sell quick. We have a lot of developments, especially now, that if they are in the right area, in the right town location, they will sell like this.
Just so that I'm clear, that there'll be a number of different phases. Is that right?
Not necessarily. Okay, it depends on the size of the project. You normally find that phase one of a new development is the best phase, price-wise, because then when they launch phase two, the prices that they finished on phase one that would have risen as they had done the sales, phase two will start at the sales price of what phase one ended up at.
Right.
So it's always best to have the phase one.
So am I right in saying then, so the developer will bring out to market a lower price point to generate interest, and once the interest starts gathering momentum, that's when they start bringing out product, and then slightly the pricing start going up. Is that roughly about right?
Roughly right, but what they will do is they will launch, and for us, we've got a few exclusive developments. But what the developer says to us is, right, they're the prices now. Once we've sold 5 or we've sold 10, we're going to put the prices up, right, for the remaining units. Once we've sold 5 or 10 more, the prices will go up again. Once we've sold 5 or 10 more, prices will rise again. So when they launch a new development, the prices are always the lowest.
So what you're saying is get in early.
We prepare and we say to our clients, because we know the developers come to us, okay, and they say, right, we're launching a new development in this area. These are the starting prices. So as soon as we know that and we trust that developer, we will then send it out and give all of our clients that information, so they're the first people to know about it.
Okay.
And then, like I say, once they start building, the infrastructure starts going up, that's when the prices start going. The third reason as well is, yes, they are going to have better building materials, but if you get in early enough, you can then choose what materials you want. So a developer and a builder will give you an option of the floor tiles. They will give you an option of the color of the kitchen. They will give you an option of the color of the bathroom. So you can actually choose and personalize it to what you want, rather than buying a resale property, as we call it, and you've got to redecorate because it's not to your...
That's another thing that we say. People say, oh, I live in the US, for example. I haven't got the inclination to oversee a refill because I don't know how to do it. Whereas you've got the choice to do it here.
We have the choice to do it, and again, being honest with you, by the time you buy a new build, and yes, you might have to wait 2 years, 3 years to get the keys, depending on obviously the developer. But you know it's going to be done to the highest standards. You buy a resale property, then you've got to go and find a reputable builder. You've got to go and try and find the materials. But if you are overseas, in, for instance, like you just said, if you're in the US, who's going to oversee that refurbishment? Because you're not going to be here.
No.
Because realistically, you've got nowhere to stay unless you're staying in a hotel.
Yeah.
So to have someone build it from scratch, and you can choose the materials and how you want it, rather than having video calls every day with your builder who's doing your reform, makes more sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, what's the timescales are you looking at normally?
Normally, you're probably looking from pre-launch, which is literally the first apartment to be sold, to completion. You're looking anything between 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. I say 2 to 3 years because it depends on how big the development is. Okay, if it's a small development of 36 apartments, then obviously that's going to be completed sooner than the one that's got 173. All of our sales that we do, our agents and our agency will get the agent every time that they're in that area to stop for the agent, stop for the client, go into the sales office, get an update.
Right.
But not only while they will get the update, they will go and take videos of the construction that's going on and the progress. So they can feed back to the client who's bought in that property and say, right, this is what's going on today. The structure's up. A couple of months later, there's another video, the windows are in. So even, for instance, like we just spoke about, if you do a reform and you're not here, who's going to look after it? Well,
You're on the ground,
we're on the ground 24/7.
keeping an eye on things.
But the developer that obviously that they've purchased with will also be sending them updates. So they will say, right, we've got the groundworks are completed. Now it's this part of the structure, or so that they've always getting that information regardless.
How do you hold them by the hand throughout that journey? Because there's a lot of things going on buying a house in Spain. You've got to get legal advice, right?
Yeah.
Because you need an NIE, you need bank accounts and all that sort of stuff. You probably need some tax advice as well, depending on why you're buying, who's buying, where in the world they live. So what kind of infrastructure or companies do you work with to help make the whole journey or the decision-making journey?
One of the companies that we obviously work with is yourselves. Yeah. And I advise all of our agents that work for us that one of the first people that they need to speak to is obviously yourself if a client is wanting help with a mortgage. Secondly, I advise them to go and get power of attorney with one of the law firms that we use.
Right.
And again, one of the law firms that we use are reputable, very well-known law firms on the Costa del Sol.
Yeah.
So again, it's trust. We work with the lawyers that we trust and we know will give the client the correct information, organise the correct paperwork, and obviously make sure that the developer has got the correct paperwork as well. But there's also a few companies that we do not use because they don't give our clients the necessary commitment that we want.
Right.
So
From our perspective, we'd like to get involved with people making a decision on buying a property in Spain as early on. It might sound a bit counterintuitive for us as a business to be with someone for a long period of time, say 2-3 years. But the amount of money that they got to put down, what's the average deposit in order to enter into an off plan? What are you talking about percentage-wise, deposit?
At private purchase contract, it's 30%.
That's on average, 30%.
That on average is 30%. Some, you might get the occasional one that's 20%, you might get the occasional one that's 40%. But realistically, the bigger developers that we work with, they want 30% on private purchase contract.
So what happens if they put that 30% down as private purchase contract? What happens after 2 years? They decide that they haven't got the money and they want to pull out. What happens then?
They've lost.
They lose the money.
They will lose that money.
Right. This is why it's so important for us to get involved early on, because you're talking about a large amount of money. And we're money people. Well, we deal with the money side of it. And we encourage each other to recommend clients so that we offer that support network to say, look, you're going to put down a large chunk of money. Are you clear as to how you're going to finance this at the end? Because if you don't, you will run the risk is, well, you will lose it, right?
At the end of the day, as soon as you've put the money down for private purchase contracts, whether that's a new build, whether that's a resale, okay, and you can't fulfill that contract, you will lose your money. It's very simple. You will lose that money, and it says it in the contract.
How many of your clients worry about finance? Do you think that they go into it with their eyes wide open, or do you think they could be encouraged a bit more to maybe seek some financial advice?
They all need encouragement. They all need reassurances. They need to know the full process of, I'm going to put my reservation fee down today. In 30 to 60 days, we're going to be going to private purchase contracts, and then I need to pay a very large chunk of money there, to what's going to happen when obviously we do get the keys. We encourage all of our agents during the first phone call, or we always encourage our agents to have an online meeting with the client before they've even entered Spain. Okay. During that conversation that they will have, they will find out obviously finances, and they will ask the questions of, right, okay, what's your budget? Is that cash, or do you need a mortgage? If they say they need a mortgage, the advice is to find out obviously how much they do have to put down, and then we can obviously pass that to you. But obviously during that conversation, the agents will also be advising and telling the buyer what's going to happen. This is what happens here, this is what happens there. If, for instance, they don't need a mortgage, then they just say, right, as long as you've got the money at the end, we won't have a problem.
Okay. Now, 2 years, 2 or 3 years, a lot can happen, right? And what we've seen is that we get phone calls, not from your company, but from other situations. Oh, I bought off plan. I now need to complete in 3 months' time. I've lost my job, or the house that I was planning on selling hasn't sold, and I need a mortgage. I didn't think I was going to need a mortgage, but now I need a mortgage. And then we have a difficult conversation, because sometimes you can't. Now, if you're based in Britain, if you're based in Germany, Switzerland, the US, Australia, wherever you may be in the world, what we see is people assume that it will be exactly the same process of getting a mortgage in Spain as it would be in their own country. And that's where a lot of people fall down. And that's where you put your 30% at risk. You try and, I know you do, but you try and encourage your buyers to seek financial advice before they put down the 30%.
Correct. If during the first phone call or during the first online meeting that the client says to us, no, I'm going to need help at the end, the client is encouraged straight away before we do anything, because we don't want to waste their time, but at the same time, we've got a job to do and we don't want to waste our time. So they're encouraged during that time to get in contact with you, especially working with yourselves. You're honest with us and we will report back to the client and say, look, we're really sorry, but we don't advise you to go ahead with this purchase.
So I think it's important that we step in here and we clarify something. So Fluent Finance Abroad, you know, and I want everyone to know, do not pay introducer. My missions to any third-party introducers. So developers don't receive anything for passing a client our way. And I think that point is really important because our advice is unbiased. So if we see that a potential deal isn't going to work for whatever reason, developers are quite happy to sort of say, well, maybe we should do something else. It's not about making a sale at all costs, is it?
No.
Not with you guys.
No. We want to make as many sales as we possibly can. But on the other hand, our reputation is far more important to us than someone who doesn't care about their client, who just wants to make quick, easy money.
Yeah.
We've both seen the amount of agencies here that have tried to do that and they're no longer here.
Yeah, it doesn't work out.
We have a lot of clients that will come to us and say, I've been speaking to such and such, and they haven't given me any of this information. Whereas you guys have given me every single little bit of information that I need to make my mind rest so I know whether I can or can't go ahead.
Whether I should or I shouldn't, or whether I should at 500,000 or I should at maybe 400, because the decision you make today, the action you make today can affect what's going to be able to happen in 2 years' time. Another thing I want to point out is that when we give advice, initial advice, we don't charge for it.
No.
All right, that's another, again, we're here to support the process.
Correct.
To ensure that people do make the right choices and they are, getting involved in something that they can afford. No matter, we always ask clients like, okay, so even if cash buyers, they think they're going to be cash buyers, it's always great to have a chat with us just to see what plan B would look like if they needed to go to plan B.
Yeah.
Now, within 2 years, for example, everything could be amazing. Your job, you might have got a salary, pay rise or whatever, but interest rates might be extremely cheap, really, really low. And you may think, well, actually, I've just been reading in the news, mortgages in Spain are ridiculously cheap. In my home country, they're quite high. Why don't I get them? Well, we had that conversation early, and we'll be here, hopefully, to support you throughout that journey to ensure that it's a pleasant one, that you don't have any mishaps.
No, and the great thing and the reason why myself likes working with you and Fluent Finance, and the reason why I encourage all of my agents to work with yourself is because we know that the job's done properly. We know that the client is going to be protected from day one. An example that I do have is we had a client a couple of months ago who basically the developer didn't come to us at the beginning, went straight to the developer. And the developer said, right, I want PPC. The client said, well, but I need a mortgage. And the developer said, yeah, we'd do that at the end. Now, I spoke to the client and I asked you to speak to the client, and on the advice that you gave, he never went ahead with a purchase because he didn't want to risk losing all of his savings to have we'll sort that out later.
Oh yeah,
From the developer.
Yeah.
So
That's not good enough, really. Oh, we'll sort out the money bit later on.
you can't operate like that. This is someone's life savings, and that person's then being told by a developer that we don't work with.
Yeah.
But also told by someone who's not as professional as we are. Don't worry about it. We'll sort it out later.
And that's not.
But what would happen? And this is what you advise the client. don't do that, because how are you going to know? You're going to pay your 30% now. How do you know when it comes to that completion in 2 years' time that you're going to get that? The advice you gave him with his background was it would be very hard for him to actually get a mortgage.
But I said it wouldn't. What I said was I had a conversation. We know the guy, the person that we're talking about, and obviously my job is to try and do business. I'm not here not to do business, but I'm here to sort of guide people and say, look, based on your profile, based on what you need, it's not the strongest application, because then they needed a fairly high loan to value. I go, it's your money, you choose what you want to do, but if you did get to the stage and you couldn't complete, how painful would it be for you to lose that money? I didn't tell him not to buy it. He told himself. So
On
the coaching essentially. And so when we looked at it and we looked at the pros and cons, he decided against it, which I thought was a very, very prudent thing for him to do. And then he's going to step back, get his mortgage approved, and then go and find something. It's just the right way, isn't it?
It's 100% the right way. 100% the right way, because obviously I've known you for a long time, and I always remember one of the first things that you said to me was, if you do have a client, let's get them pre-approved, because then once they've got that pre-approved mortgage, you know exactly that they're going to be covered, you know exactly what their budget's going to be, because there's nothing worse than a client going, I want to spend this much, but realistically they can't spend that much because they won't get the mortgage for that much, but they will get the mortgage
At this level.
So
The clients are happy because they know how much they're paying. They can afford to pay what they're paying. They're comfortable with it. They're all in agreement. Everything's prepared. Is being prepared to go and make a big decision. And this is investing in Spain and buying property is a big decision.
it is a big decision.
Yeah, as a team we work together. You need a good lawyer, good independent lawyer. You need a great agent, and you also need good solid financial advice. I mean, one thing I will say about working with on-off plan is that we've noticed, because we've been doing it for so many years, we followed sales from the beginning to the actual moment they get the keys. We're part of it from the beginning to the end. We see the price that was originally bought. We do a valuation at the end, obviously, because we need to value the asset, and we never have a problem with the value. So I know that the developer adds value. So new build, it is interesting before all the things that we've covered today, and the evidence comes at the end when we do a valuation.
It's always going to be higher.
Very good. Okay, well that was great. I really enjoyed that conversation about op plans, and speak to you again soon. Cheers, Dave.
See you later, mate.
Thank you.
Take care.